representation matters. It's important to me to see people who sounded and looked like me, people who brought out that unique perspective, because it is unique. It shapes how you access services, how you receive information. It allows you to perhaps ask questions that people that have not had to go through your own experiences didn't think of.
Welcome to the UMGC podcast, Unstoppable Stories, with your host, Nathan James.
Hello, everybody. It is good to see you. I am here with Mr. Pedro Diaz, who is the Director of Language and Guest Services at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. And Pedro actually earned his MBA with us last fall as well. And so he's a UMGC grad. Pedro, thank you for taking time to be with us today.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored. Thank you.
Really looking forward to digging in. Let's start with where you grew up. Talk about where you grew up and what your career aspirations were.
Sure. I was born in Lima, Peru. So I'm originally from South America, where I lived most of my life. I moved to the United States in 2001. Basically, my goal was to go into law school. I didn't have like quite a clear career path when I was growing up, but my dad is a lawyer. So I thought he seems to be doing well, and he actually encouraged me to apply. I'm the youngest of five, and none of my siblings wanted to pursue law. So I think he was hopeful that one of us would follow his steps. So I came with the intention of becoming a lawyer. But as an undergrad student, I needed a job, to be honest with you. And one of the skills that I had was being bilingual. So while I was going to school, I applied for a job in an inner city nonprofit in Baltimore that provided healthcare services to a large number of Hispanic and immigrants from different parts of the world. And it was actually located across the street from the International Refugee Center. So it was a mix of patients who lived in Baltimore City, but also a mix of patients who came from other countries to seek asylum, and also immigrants who live in the area. So while I was working there, it so happens that I was able to one day, when I was actually just working in customer service, the manager of the clinic came to me and said, "Hey, do you speak Spanish? I need your help." And she pulled me into a room where there was a patient behind a curtain, and she asked me to help the doctor. The doctor spoke English. The patient didn't speak any English, so I was able to help them communicate. I was very shocked because I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you. And when I left the room, they called me from another room. Long story short, that was my introduction to what's called medical interpreting. So I wasn't trained, I wasn't prepared. I did my best, but then I felt that there was some disconnect between what they wanted me to do and what was supposed to be done. The organization that I worked at started investing in me. So trained me. I became a qualified interpreter. So basically, I went through the training to become a medical interpreter. But in that organization, there was a huge gap between the communication and how we supported services for those who spoke a language other than English. So I was pulled to do a little bit of everything. I did referral coordination. I helped schedule appointments. I helped communicate and set up a study. So that's when I really realized what a gap there is to serve populations that are new to the country, who are not familiar with healthcare, how complex healthcare was, to be honest with you. And I got bitten by the bug of working in healthcare settings. So I realized that I wanted to do more. I would realize that I had the skills in operations and to be able to understand processes, and it really made me feel valued. We even did a survey to be able to assess the perceptions of those patients about the quality of the services that they received and identify gaps, which I used to communicate with leadership. Long story short, that's when I realized I wanted to work in healthcare administration. So after working for an organization, I went to a large healthcare system in Baltimore. I worked as an interpreter. Then I had great mentors who who basically gave me opportunities to work in administration and operations. So I worked for the international side of this health system. Then I felt like my capacity to support patient care was very niche. So I went into hospital operations. So I led patient access for radiology in this healthcare system. And after working there for a while, I went back to my roots in language access. So I joined my current organization as the language access manager. And I had a great leader who then realized that my skill set and my background could help support other areas, which led into me becoming the director of language and guest services, which includes all language access for the organization, but also the hospital operators team who manages all the incoming calls for the organization and alerts, and also the welcome desk, which are the point of entry for the organization. So it's been a journey, but it's been really rewarding.
I mean, that covers a lot of ground. How long have you been the director of language and guest services at Children's?
It would be close to 4 years in February, March of next year.
Wow. Has the time gone by fast?
Yeah. It's been a fun ride. It's been a fun ride.
Wow. I mean, you've come a long way from being what basically a scheduler in Baltimore, right, at that inner city clinic. And take me back to that time where you felt, it sounds like a passion for you really ignited. I mean, you had a plan of being a lawyer,
Yeah.
right? And you had that aspiration, and that's great. But eventually, this captured your heart. I'm guessing that had something to do with seeing the situations that your clients were caught in, right? I mean, that's a tough spot to be in, to be sick or to have medical needs and not know the language.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what about that really ignited your passion for doing what you do now.
So I think two things. I think the first one is personally, I mentioned I'm the youngest of five. But my eldest sister, she was born and very early on, when she was a year and 6 months, she contracted meningitis. So so she overcame the illness to a certain extent, but she had special needs. My parents had to face and provide special care for her through her life. So I grew up with a sibling basically that required a lot of care. So watching my mother and my father navigate that was something that impacted me personally and gave me a sense of awareness of how the world can view someone that is different, but also that requires accommodations, and how ill prepared sometimes we are. Which to me, it just made me realize that there's something that I wanted to do to protect her, and gave me a soft spot to realize how much we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. That paired up with my experience coming to a new country, where I myself had to adapt to a different culture and understand, even though I spoke the language, a very complex healthcare system, because you're not aware of how difficult it is to navigate sometimes until you are yourself sick, right? And I'm fortunate. I had access to healthcare. I had access to insurance, and when I started the job in this smaller healthcare system, set of clinics, many of the patients were individuals who didn't have access to insurance, or they had to apply for sliding scale services or fees, or they had access only to primary care but not to specialty care, or they didn't speak the language, and it was very, and they could have been my mom, they could have been my brother and my sister, they could have been someone in my community, and they were members of my community per se. So I felt that it was important to give back, and to ensure that if I was given any opportunities to influence some positive change in their lives when they needed it the most, it was kind of like a moral call, right? Because you never know when you're going to be in the other end, and you would hope that if you ever need that, somebody looks at you and there's really compassion, and that's whatever is possible to try to help you. So that really motivated me a lot, and it still does. Honestly, he still does.
A scenario is coming to my mind of just, I just want listeners to imagine potentially how scary it would be to be in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and you're desperately sick, right? And so, Pedro, you're dealing and working with, and like you said, making folks feel cared for who are in very challenging situations
Mhm.
where there's fear too,
Yeah.
right? And like I remember, even I've had an experience at Children's National Hospital. My sister, unfortunately, had appendicitis. My little sister, a number of years ago when we were kids, and they essentially saved her life. And it was a very, very scary situation for my family. And I can only imagine how much more scary it would have been if we didn't even speak the language, right? So, for folks who are coming to a medical setting like this, uh, with that type of vulnerability, Pedro, I don't know, even if you have an example of what, how do you make someone feel safe and not be afraid when they feel the fear of being sick, also the fear of not knowing the language? How do you make them feel safe in a moment like that?
I think my experience in pediatric healthcare is there have always been very positive because working in an environment where you take care of children, people coming and working here tend to have a very common goal, a very unique common goal, right? You're trying to provide care not just to the patient, but to the family unit, whatever it does it look like. So you're helping them in within their journey. So starting from that place where we all share the common goal and values is a great place to start because you truly are surrounded by people who have the patient and the family at the center of everything that we do.
Mm,
I think where we come into play is that we make that intentionality clear in a language that they understand. So those behaviors and words that are expressing a language that they may not understand, our team does provide it not only in their native language, but using the same tone. Also, one thing about language access is that you don't just do word by word. It's also ensuring that you're paying attention for potential clarifications, ensuring
mhm,
that you are intervening when perhaps somebody is nodding and saying yes when you realize they don't understand what you're saying. So you're allowed the two parties, whether it's a doctor or the patient, to revisit that potential discrepancy or clarification to connect again. Our programs, for example, are also involved not only in the clinical care aspect of their experience. So we have so
mhm.
many programs, like we have child life specialists who use educational techniques to be able to teach families procedures and children to understand what's going to happen to them.
Good.
A healing garden where they do activities where children can still be children even though they're admitted in the hospital. Like just recently, they had a prom party for patients who couldn't attend their own prom, but they could come a party here to be kids again. So just because you stop, just because you're in a hospital and you're receiving treatment doesn't mean you stop being a child. Like for
Mm.
example, one more thing before I forget, this happened today. I was running to a colleague of mine who runs the events on the Healing Garden, which is an indoor outdoor garden, and they hold events every day, right? So we make announcements over through using the overhead system, letting them know patients and families visit us at the Healing Garden. We're going to have this particular event, this celebration, this festival. Uh, our announcements are made in two languages at least. And she was telling me, you know what? We realized that more families who are speaking another language are showing up and benefiting from these events because these announcements are now being made on a language they understand. So they get to experience these other activities, and initiatives where families can just enjoy being a family, even though they are behind the doors of a hospital, right? Mm.
Wow.
And I find it fascinating
Huh.
um, because you want to create an environment of healing.
I really like that phrasing, an environment of healing. It's family friendly, it's safe, right? Okay, okay. By the way, again, everybody, we're talking to Pedro Diaz, UMGC graduate, with the latest Unstoppable story. And so I'm going to move right into the next question, which would be, actually, I'm curious. You're in the DC area, obviously, nationals in DC. I'm sure you come across a host of languages. Do you have an estimate for how many
Well,
languages that you see?
I
Because
mean,
I'm sure it's not two or three.
no, no, not 2 or 3. So we, I would say, like, any given year, we have an average of 20 plus languages per se.
Wow.
However, we provide, so we don't only we not only have in-person interpreters for languages, we also have video remote devices that are deployed throughout the whole organization, where you can tap an iPad device, for example, and connect with a video remote interpreter for over 70 languages within a matter of minutes or seconds. And we also provide over the phone interpretation for over 200 languages by just picking up the phone and dialing a number. And because for some languages, you might not have that availability of an in-person in the area, you might have to rely
Sure.
on someone only over the phone to another part of the country, for example, or the world. So, but we have a large spoken language patient population: Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, Urdu, Farsi, Pashto, Amharic, and then we also have a large deaf and hard of hearing population that we provide American Sign Language services as well. So it's quite large.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your journey into leadership, right? I mean, you started again, at this Baltimore clinic as a scheduler, and you're working your way through college at that time, I believe, as well. Um, can you tell me what were one or two of the most key events, or maybe one of the two most inspirational people that
Yeah.
helped you transform, right,
Yeah.
into this leader that you are today?
Yeah, I am very grateful because I had wonderful mentors and leaders that took a chance on me. I wish I would have said that yes, I was so driven that I sought a mentor and I had it very clear. I can remember two people. One was my first manager when I was a medical interpreter, who gave me my first leadership position in the larger health system in Baltimore where I lived. It so happens that she needed some administrative support leading a smaller part of her team, and I was quite quick technology wise, so she asked me to cover. But as I started to cover, she started having one-on-ones with me and seeing leadership skills that I possess,
Mm,
and being very clear about what I needed to do to improve. So I always say that she wasn't afraid. Her hand did not shake when she had to tell you something. She was very straightforward, very precise, but at the same time, very smart as of to how she approached and coached me on how to navigate just the organization. Um, so she gave me my first leadership role, and under her mentorship, I was able to grow into a manager. She herself was also from another country, and she herself, yeah, yeah, she was from Japan. Uh, so her 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 ability to remain poised and composed, and be able to give feedback in a very succinct and direct way, but was very was very helpful to me because I needed that in a leader. I needed someone who was very honest and someone who was very straightforward. Um, she taught me a lot. So just by role modeling behavior, which is something as a young student and being alone, to be honest, when I moved here, I was alone. So I didn't have my family nearby to check in with. I looked up to her. Uh, and then later on in my career, when I went into clinical operations, I had a fantastic administrator. She was a very, a very, a very charismatic leader. She was able to mobilize a large operation and had her leaders sing at the tune of her words. Like we believe, like we followed her. We followed. She could tell us that to do crazy things with short time frames sometimes, and we would be like, we can do this because we know that we'll have your back. So she always gave us a little support. She also had a great sense of humor,
Huh.
which I
That helps a lot.
oh yeah, yeah, she was funny, but she knew her operations so well, and she protected her people. She always had your back. She gave it to you straight, but you knew that she did it because she cared. Um, so her integrity is something that I always look up to, because no matter what happened, she always stood her ground, and she lived the values that she professed to others. So to me, that was very inspiring. And she also invested in us. She invested in our development. She gave us projects that were challenging and learning opportunities where we could apply our skills. Um, it was wonderful. So when I had having those two people who influenced my view on leadership and my to to believe in my abilities really shaped me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The belief, both of the managers that you mentioned there clearly showed big time belief, right? Where they knew you could do things that maybe you didn't even know you
Now,
could do.
uh,
But their belief and their confidence was so strong, even if it was a deadline that was coming up quickly. Oh, of course we can do it
yeah,
because they say we can. You
yeah,
know, that's powerful,
yeah.
huh? Okay. Now, you mentioned even your first manager was a minority leader. You mentioned Japanese, I think. Looking on back on that, what would you say is the importance of having minority leaders at the table of leadership in healthcare in particular?
Representation matters, and uh, I was looking first. They were both female leaders, uh, which I look up to because I also understood that they had to overcome, perhaps, in a team of male leaders across the board. And having these conversations openly and honestly with them. Um, Sometimes they would share some of the challenges, and it made me realize that we had more in common that I thought we did. Uh, Many times, and this is my own experience, so I don't expect everybody to share the same view, but uh, you know, sometimes I felt that I needed to bring my own chair to the table. I'm not afraid to bring my own chair in the table, but I think it's important to me, or at least it was important to me, to see people who sounded and looked like me, people who brought out that unique perspective, because it is unique. It shapes how you access services, how you receive information, how it allows you to perhaps ask questions that people that have not had to go through your own experiences didn't think of, not for lack of interest, but because it's not their point of view. And also, it helps you share and educate others, informally or formally sometimes, on your own experiences. At the very beginning, I must say that yes, I was not always invited to every single conversation, but by inserting myself in conversations, I was able to be invited, and having a curious mind. And sometimes you just have to ask, "Hey, can I just what's this meeting about? Oh, can I attend?" I'm not just gonna
Initiative.
yeah, just
Yeah.
listen to it, um, because if you weren't asked, it's not because they didn't want to invite you sometimes, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
no one wakes
that's
up.
true.
Yeah, because I don't think people.
Don't take it personal kind of thing, right? Oh, they don't want me here. Oh, it's just too bad. Never mind. Let me go into a corner. No.
No, I strongly believe that no one wakes up in the morning thinking, how can I upset someone today, right? Like most of us wake up thinking of how we want to have a good day, how we want to help others, how we want to make a positive impact. So we used to call this thinking of the positive intent, right? We all have positive intentions. So when you sometimes forget that that's the case, that's where you have a chip on your shoulder. But asking asking very clear questions from in a language that does not sound, I guess, rude or obnoxious and demanding, but more like with a curious mind, trying to learn, listening for learning, not listening to answer.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it makes a difference.
No, that's really good. Can you think of any lessons that you learned in your during your time with UMGC, with your MBA, that you've been able to apply to your career as a director now?
Even though I've always been in person because I work in a hospital care setting, I've been taking on a lot more large scale projects that requires a lot of more remote virtual planning. So I have assumed more of not only the leadership role as a director, but the project lead on many, many projects,
Mm,
which was also something that I had to apply while I was in class because um,
perfect.
also in my downfall, I'm always going to be the person who likes to have a spreadsheet and to assign roles and to run the agenda. I like deadlines. That's just me.
Uh-huh.
So however, like working in topics that I wasn't familiar with when I was going through my program and having to learn those and having to delegate and trust my partners and communicate. So that project management skill set that you have to kind of like apply on the work that you do as a student, but also the research, how to conduct research and how to look at reliable resources and validate our resources has been really helpful as well because it provided me a broader aspect of how to look into that. So I would say those were most of those were lessons that I still apply every day. Uh,
Mm,
and we live in a world where virtual management of teams is just a requirement, right? Like my teams are now in different size in different places, and be able to utilize virtual tools to manage those teams is also something that I learned while I was doing this. Not only being a virtual program, but that was part of how we did a lot of our cap, projects when it comes to doing analysis of products being launched internationally, etc. So that's something that I thought that was really helpful and practical.
that's wonderful. Um, let's go back a little bit to the fact that you've been able to being bilingual, just be able to use that skill set in so many settings during your career. For our listeners, if someone is listening right now, for our listeners who are bilingual, right, and wondering how they can use their gift, right, how they can use that to help others, but they're not sure where to start, right? What advice would you have for them?
I mean, I first, I think that you can make a difference wherever you are, right? But I think in personally in my field, there's work to be done. If you're a bilingual employee in any healthcare setting, your language skills could be used in any setting that you have, like
Mm,
communication. How are you communicating, even reading materials? How are you communicating verbally? What is that? How do you build access for patient populations? There's a lot of outreach initiatives. Get involved. To be honest, get involved in your communities. Uh, a lot of
mm,
uh, a lot of opportunities are there. You just have to do research on where to find them. So in the field of medical interpreting, it's not just medical. You can do interpreting in business, you can do interpreting in legal, you can do interpreting in so many different forums, and they're available out there. Um, so I would say start asking questions in whatever you are. Like you can apply those language skills in anything that you do, to be honest.
that's fantastic. What about for folks who are, what advice do you have for someone who doesn't feel ready for that leadership role just
Mhm.
yet? Maybe it feels like it's too much pressure.
Yeah.
Or you feel like they have more to learn.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for folks in that situation, but they still want to grow in order to be ready to be a leader and overcome that fear to be a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that management is not for everyone. That's that
True.
and it's not I don't think anyone should ever take it as a sign that you're not a leader.
Hmm,
You can still be a leader and not hold a management role.
that's so
Uh,
true.
you we leader a leadership is also a mindset, and is the way you influence others around you. And in order to be a leader, you also know how to follow, right? So having that cultural humility, to know that you have to sometimes take a step back to follow others that might have a different skill set than you is really important. Um, I think that one of the main I struggle with this one, to be honest, but because I'm a talker, but listening is a very powerful skill. Um, in order to lead anyone, you need to know who you are leading. You need to define what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish as a team to inspire them, what motivates them. Um, but I'd say that if you're afraid, um, join causes that are really linked to what drives you, that align with your values, because those tend to be the easiest, whether they're like job wise or not. That's when you start discovering what true leadership means to you. And um, I don't think leadership is also just emulating behaviors. You have to be genuine. So I had great leaders, and I tried to look up. I never wanted to change who I was, but I wanted to improve how I led. So ask people and allow them to give you feedback. Feedback is important because without feedback, you don't grow.
Oh, very good. Listen, the importance of listening, I just can't be overstated. I'm so glad that you emphasized that. And I remember I got advice like, to be the best leader, you need to be an amazing follower, right? And so the humility that comes with that is, you just can't understate it. Oh, that's so good, Pedro. There are people who believe in life that there are no accidents in life, right? Things happen. I think happens for a reason. In your words, how would you say your detour? Because it was kind of a detour. You were thinking you're going to get the law degree, inspired by your dad, and then here you are now, right? You're working in healthcare. How would you say that detour for you changed, your life, right? From going to law to now doing healthcare in the setting that you are right now.
Yeah, no, it really changed. I think when I came back to working with languages and access, um, and then led me into in my current role per se, I was in a path where I was more disconnected with direct patient impact, and I was more into the project side, which is fun. I still do it. It's not the focus of what I do full time, but I still do it as part of my current role. Uh, but I think that going back to what drove me, right? And what gave me that full sense of fulfillment personally, because I feel that if you're working in the healthcare environment and you are not aligning yourself to the values of an organization, it's really hard to keep engaged and motivated. This is
Mm,
a field where you are helping individuals at the most vulnerable time of their lives. And so your role is never to put yourself first. And that's why you need to surround yourself with people that will understand what you're going through and you can partner with and find strength when you did it yourself. You know, people that come here every day is they're leaving their families, their loved ones, perhaps going through their own journey themselves, but we'll put that aside because we're here to help that patient and family in a room whose life could change at any time,
yeah.
to focus on being a parent to their child. And we can worry about everything else while you're here. So you can feel supported, right? So that aspect of looking at my peers and my staff and understanding that this is the sacrifices that we're making on a daily basis to do this
Mhm.
means something. And
Mm,
and we owe it to each other and I owe it to them to try to create the environment and an environment where they can also feel supported.
yeah, thank you. And the work you do, so meaningful. You and your team, so meaningful and vital. How can our listeners support you and your team? Is there anything that we can do in terms of supporting you and your team at Children's National that you can think of that we can let people in on?
Yes, there's definitely a lot that anybody can do. And thank you
Yeah.
for giving me this chance to bring this up. We are a freestanding children's hospital, right? So we rely a lot on our partners and community to be able to support the mission of what we do. So if you ever care to support financially or donate to the organization, we have a big foundation that always seeks opportunities from from individuals and organizations and the community to be able to support. So there's always the opportunity to donate. Most recently, we on October 18th, we have an event called Race for Every Child, which is a yearly 5K where the community, patients, former patients, employees, anyone can join us and do a 5K walk, hop, or run if you choose, and donate and participate and celebrate the mission of the organization. It's at the Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. We also have a large volunteer department that will receive your help. We every year during the holidays we take donations for example, toys for children. So if you visit our website, you can visit it, and you can do some research. And so there's many ways to give back.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, folks. Yeah, take that seriously. Whatever we can do to give back and to support you and the incredible work you do, Pedro and your team, and everyone at Children's. Let's do it. Let's do it, folks. Well, look, Pedro, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule with us, and this has been meaningful. It's been enjoyable. Couldn't appreciate what you and your team do more. To our audience, thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening. Just remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these stories, and make sure that you also know that you can catch up on previous seasons or episodes too, okay? On your preferred podcast channel. We're there, okay? So if you want to hear more unstoppable stories, make sure you engage, okay? All right. We'll see you next time. And I hope everyone has an incredible rest of your day.
Thank you.